the neighborhood advisory boards and cabinets and stuff. So I'll do my best to give you, to share the knowledge that I have in my head regarding this law, and we'll kind of field some questions. I think you guys probably have more questions than you do, but I'll give you an overview of the law. Senate Bill 140 was passed last year and signed by the governor. It's a misdemeanor offense to talk on a cell phone unless you have some type of hands-free device or Bluetooth type device. We all know that, correct?
Yeah.
And what we're seeing out there, as it relates to violations, if you will, I'll use myself as an example. I hear my phone ring. I know I can just press this button here and answer the call, but I don't know who it is. We all have that sense of curiosity about who's calling us. A lot of us like to field call. So if I simply reach in and grab my phone while I'm driving down the road and say, oh, it's my wife, I don't want to take that call right now, I've already broken the law just by holding this phone. Okay? So that's something to keep in mind. We're also seeing a lot of people, I think the perception of when you're operating a motor vehicle has come into question as well. Because we're seeing a lot of people either reading emails, texting messages, or reading text or other non-voice communication while they're sitting in traffic somewhere, like at a stoplight. Or they're stalled with roadways they are now today. So they're stuck in traffic, the vehicle is grounded, it's not moving, it's in gear, it's in a travel lane, and they're still working the phone. That's a violation. So the law says while you're operating a motor vehicle, you cannot hold a hands-free device and or read non-voice communication unless you have some type of hands-free technology. That's about as simple as I can make it. There are exceptions to the law. I'll try to go over, I've got them all in the sheet. My intent this morning, I always go into work at 6. My game plan when I went to bed last night was to get up a little bit earlier, go to my office, pull up that law, highlight some specific portions of it, burn 50 copies, and have some handouts. But that didn't work out very well. But I was up extra early this morning. My phone started ringing much earlier than it does. But there are several exceptions. If you work for a utility company, like the power company, like AT&T, the phone company, and your phone is given to you by your employer, and you're responding to a bona fide power outage somewhere, you can talk on the phone. If you are any citizen who sees a roadway emergency of any type, whether it's a crime in progress, a disabled motorist, an accident, you want to report a drunk driver, just to name a few examples, you don't need to have the hands-free type technology. You can pick up the phone and talk to a dispatcher. If you're a radio, if you're licensed by the FCC, and I think all you guys and ladies fall into that category as ham operators, the law says you are exempt from hands-free type technology as long as you're participating in a real-world disaster event, or you're taking part in a real exercise of some sort, whether it's conducted by our Division of Emergency Management or the County of Washoe or some other entity that has staged a real-world type scenario exercise. You can participate. Now, I've been talking to a lot of folks on the side. You know, if you've got just a button to push to talk, like a CB radio microphone or my police radio microphone, and there are no buttons for numbers, there's no screen to read, if you will, you're fine. You're fine. And the reason CBs are exempt is because they felt that the radio itself, with the volume control, the channel changer, and channel display, was all hardwired, if you will, into the dash. So the only thing that you're really doing at one time is keying to talk. One of the driving forces behind the hands-free type technology and this particular law is there are 3 types of distractions that come into play when you're holding a phone. First of all, when I'm holding it like this, I'm manually distracted because I'm holding something in my hand. One less hand on the steering wheel. If I'm reading a text, or I'm simply just looking at my caller ID, when I pick up the phone, now I'm visually distracted. And when you go into the texting or emailing, and the thought process of just fielding a call, now you're cognitively or mentally distracted. So you've got 3 types of distraction when you're actually holding a phone and doing a multiple array of tasks. So I think some of our lawmakers decided to compromise the law by allowing hands-free type technology and threw in a number of exceptions to the law too. Law enforcement is exempt from the law, and I get that. That's probably the biggest pet peeve out there that I perceive. You know, why is it that cops get to talk on the phone all the time? Well, and I try to set the example out there. You won't see Chuck talking on the phone like this unless I'm parked somewhere doing an interview. I mean, as much as I can do interviews with this device on KOH, the sound quality isn't there, and they prefer me to talk into here. You actually prefer a landline, but we do the best we can. But in order for a police officer to talk on his cell phone, that has to be with the approval of his director, in my case, sheriff of a county, police chief of a city organization. So, will you see violations out there? I suspect you will, but I mean, you're in the same boat as I. I mean, you can call and phone and complain. I just viewed an email complaint on a trooper who was caught texting while going down the highway. So I hit the forward button and I copied everybody in my chain of command, including the person that I replied back to, obviously. So that person knew that, you know, I at least up-channeled it to the deputy chief here in the Reno area. What the outcome of that is, I don't know. Is it a letter of reprimand? I don't know. It's a personnel matter. But again, I think people in general rely on us that wear the uniform every day to be the example setters, and I try to be that. So that's kind of an overview of the law in general. Again, there's still a lot of questions out there, especially with the younger folks, you know, as to iPods. Because technically that is a wireless device, even though, you know, one can say, well, you know, Chuck, I plug the wire into my iPod and I plug it into the stereo. Now it's not wireless anymore. Well, one could argue I could plug my phone charger into my phone and now it's not wireless anymore. But the device itself, as it sits right here, or an iPod over here, they are wireless devices. And when you pick one of those up and you hold it in your hand and you're reading non-voice communication or a set of songs, you're in violation of the law. So they got the younger folks kind of upset with this as well. So it is what it is. But you know, when I talk to the kids in driver's ed, I always say there's not a call worth taking that's worth your life, especially as a novice driver out there. And your moms and dad's going to know where you're at anyway, and that's why we have voicemail. You know, and I've had people ask me, well, what if the phone rings? Can I legally pull over and take the call? And I said, sure you can. It's not a practice that we want to see out there. I mean, it's probably okay on the city streets when you have a lower moving traffic, or lower speeds, if you will. But my bosses don't want to see a lot of stopped cars on the shoulder, even though it may be safe to do so, or legal to do so. It may not be as safe to do because of the potential for a lane departure collision. You know, somebody drops something in their own vehicle, they reach to grab it, they deviate from their lane just a little bit, then there's you sitting on the shoulder taking your call, and now we've got a collision to investigate. So, and chances are, if you hear your phone ring and you don't want to invest in this type of technology, by the time you pull over to the side of the road, you've already missed the call anyway. And if you want to cheat and look at your phone to see who it is, then you've already broken the law anyway. So you can really get wrapped up into this thing quite a bit. So my best practice is either don't use the phone at all while you're driving, and or if you do, develop or buy something like this, or the one that clips on the visor, or the one that comes factory in some of the newer cars and trucks out there. That's integrated into the stereo system. So, any questions so far? I'm probably going to get the one about the ham radio one where you push it to talk. I think you guys are good. I'm not familiar with a lot of your equipment. I know that microphones are being passed around, but I think you guys are able to adapt to something that makes you in compliance with the law. Am I right? Can you buy something out there where you're in compliance, or do you have to have the keyboard there? Again, I don't know how ham radios work. I'm not a radio guy. I am not. I just know how to make my voice come over the radio if I need to.
Well, let's give them a test.
Let me grab this gentleman here.
Okay. Thank you. I have what's known as a temperature with two bandits, and I have a headset, but I have to push the talk and the microphone here.
Right.
But I can also put this radio on Vox, which means it's
voice only.
Free. Voice only. If my voice will key the radio up.
That's fine.
Talking. I use it when I'm driving.
Okay. Yeah, voice activation is fine. Voice activation is fine. In fact, that's what they want our. That's what they want people to use for GPS too. They want voice activated navigation. And for those that use their iPhone or phone for navigation to go from point A to point B, you sure can, as long as this is cradled somewhere. It can be, Velcroed on the dash. It could be a suction cup to the windshield. It could be setting in the center console. As long as you can't hold it, you're fine. And as long as that navigation is giving you voice directions, you're fine. So, to answer your question, you're fine too, as long as that's a voice-activated unit and you're not holding it in your hand. But try to find a way to maybe clip it on your necklet up here or on your belt, somewhere where your voice can hear it, but you're not holding it in your hand. I think your guys would be fine, your ladies would be fine. I know this gentleman had a question next.
I was just going to say that all modern mobile transceivers do come with microphones that have the keypad on, which is for sending signals to a repeater, and not normally used during operation because you normally have your frequency already selected that you're listening to. And they do have up and down buttons that again aren't really used. The question would be, there really aren't. The manufacturers don't make just regular push-to-talk buttons that work with these kind of radios.
Okay.
So it's almost next to impossible to even get one. But would there be support among the law enforcement community to, in the next legislative session, try to get rid of that qualifier, buttons on there?
I think you guys could get the support on that. I mean, especially if you rally together and you work with our, I would suspect you guys work with the state's Division of Emergency Management when the stuff really hits the fan out there, whether it's a fake planned exercise or I was talking to, I think it was, he's not here today, but I'm going to say Don Murray and some other folks. You guys see stuff out there on the roads. You guys are the eyes for us that wear the uniform. I mean, you're calling in stalled vehicle, you're calling in accidents and other things. And again, when you're doing that role, you're more than fine. But I suspect if you're just driving down the road wanting to chat with another ham radio operator, that's when you're going to need to have that clarification in the law, and that may be something you may want to lobby for, or have the law amended to.
As the second part, it would just, it would help to have law enforcement's support on the, just, if you've seen over the years that ham radios aren't the problem, it's really people with cell phones that they're being overly broad with their legislation.
And do you guys have a like a group president or a point of contact, somebody that's in charge of like this chapter, if you will?
Yeah, there's several clubs. Yes.
I mean, just as a thought process, because I've used this channel myself to get the word out, is the Nevada Sheriffs and Chiefs Association, all 17 sheriffs and the multitude of chiefs and deputy chiefs meet quarterly throughout the state. That may be a way to get on their agenda. Between, I wouldn't wait too long, but get on there and just give them an overview of what you do and ask if you can get some support. I mean, that's huge right there when you start building a bill and moving it forward. And then checking with your local districts, your local person to see if you can get that drafted as well.
I guess the one thing that I've noticed is various law enforcement agencies have various interpretations of the law.
Okay.
You're using that microphone? No. You got a ticket.
And that just might be lack of education on the individual officer, trooper, deputy that's out there. I suspect so. So I mean, education is a huge component of this law. As you don't know. I mean,
that's why I'm bringing it up.
Right.
That's a top-down thing.
Okay. No, I'm on your side there. I'm on your side there. I completely endorse it.
How about this?
What do you?
This is my ego.
Oh. Okay.
I'm going to check it out.
Okay. Very good. And you had a question?
Yeah.
Dan mentioned the microphones with all the buttons on them.
Yes.
It's hard. It's actually impossible to get a ham radio microphone
Without those buttons.
My radio has 2 extra buttons on it.
Yeah.
Move the channel up, the other one move the channel down. Now, if I disable it, I can open up the mic and I can unplug those buttons so that they don't work. Now, would that microphone be legal?
It probably would, but it goes back to his question about the individual trooper, officer, deputy that pulls you over and says, I saw you talking on your thing and you got buttons on.
If he pulls me over, he's going to see me in court and I can show that
Right.
they don't work.
And that's the other aspect of this whole thing. And not to just keep defending myself or those that wear this uniform, but whenever you receive a citation, it's not the end of the world. That doesn't mean that law enforcement person found you guilty on the side of the highway. It's just basically he's acting on his authority based on what he or she saw. And it's not until the judge throws that gavel down and says you're guilty. So, there are a lot of subjects. This is kind of, in some ways, I'm not going to say subjective, but there are, for those that don't know, portions of the law. So, but again, I think if you've got your radio mic here. Let me see one of the buttons on it. So, I mean, I think if you're just talking like this going down the road, and it's clear that you've got this wired and it's wired in, I don't see anybody issuing you a citation for that, especially when they pull you over and you've got your FCC license to have a ham radio in your truck. I don't see the issue. The issue I see is you just happen to be at the right place at the right time when you're going, when you're doing something like that. When you're visually distracted looking at a keypad, that's what's going to get you in trouble. But if your radio's set up to talk, and I'm not, again, I don't know much about ham radios. I know a little bit about CVs, but if you're changing channels, if you will, while you're driving, that's going to be a challenge amongst yourselves right now, and see if you can get that law amended if you can. Does that make sense?
It's tough.
Yeah.
About 20 of us went down to the hearings at the Assembly and Comedy Club last year. And we could tell from the get-go that they were against ham radios, didn't even stand a chance. And one of the guys in the assembly said, well, what about when you're eating a hamburger? See, it's a matter of having common sense and driving carefully and hands on the wheel.
And I've seen ladies that put their makeup on, and we see it all.
There's eyebrow thing. Do those
It's
eyelashes.
not a felon if they do that.
Go ahead.
A question was brought up that we are licensed by the Federal Communications Commission to operate radios. Now, the Federal Communications exempts state and local laws normally. So it looks like that could be a test case or something like that.
For you guys to move forward with. And again, I think it's finding the right person in the assembly kind of to be your ambassador and moving this forward.
The other thing I want to mention, we have a gentleman at the end of the table that was out of cell phone range and used ham radio to probably save a couple of lives on Highway 80 near Wolf Pack.
Again,
2 days ago.
yeah. And I mean, document this stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, on paper. I mean, you get the
I was actually pulled over 4 weeks ago by an NHP officer for using my amateur radio.
Did you get cited?
No, I didn't.
No.
But she clearly was uneducated about the law. She didn't really know anything about it. And I told her that I was just getting a weather report because I go to school in TCC and I was getting a weather report for the road conditions for the last snow we had.
Okay.
And I had my cell phone. It's mounted in my dash. I didn't touch it. She just saw that I was talking, and she said it was a CB radio. But I have the vanity plates also.
Oh, okay.
She just didn't recognize it, I guess.
Okay.
But she said it's still a voice communication. You can't use it. Don't do it.
Well, again, it goes
that
back to
was
the.
last week, I remember that.
It was going back to the education aspect of it. So.
She was interested.
Yeah. Email officer.
Okay. You got me there. Okay, no, I got it.
Okay, there's also been some conflict too, published on the Nevada DMV website, kind of negates this law. I actually meant to print it and bring it out, but it is on the Nevada DMV site. It gives us use.
They give you use of it?
Yeah, at least that's my interpretation of the language that's in that document. So, and I know the DMV is not an enforcement agency, but
Right, but I mean, I talk to their PIOs all the time too, so.
so I don't know, how do you convince somebody that one person is saying it's okay and the other person is saying it's not?
Okay, so
Where is that line?
On their website, it's saying that it is okay to talk on a ham radio. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and they address 140 right on the paperwork and everything.
Just sign over there in Cold Springs.
What's that?
You know the one where you're coming back to, where you come back and forth? Use of handheld cellular devices. cellular devices.
Don't point at me. Oh shit.
Whatever they collect for the ticket sales. So whoever's taking the poll, they're doing 50% of it. They just haven't started.
Hold up, guys. Hold up. Got some more questions here.
More questions?
Rob.
I'll get yours next.
Hey, quiet! Quiet!
Get up.
I'll tell you, the thing that gentleman over there was bringing up about the different officers, well, interpreting the thing differently is a big problem for us. I mean, we can't afford the time to be off driving and to go to court.
Right, I get it.
Something like that, and what can we do to have all of the officers on the same page? I mean, that's very important, because as the one that stopped him down there, you know, just hit stop.
It's time off the road, I get it.
We can only drive so many hours a day.
Right.
That's a big thing.
Okay. Because I know, I mean, the men and women in my agency who do nothing but commercial enforcement. I mean, they're looking at, obviously, the state regs, but they're also qualified and certified to write federal law violations, as you well know. So, but I can definitely, if I need to, channel that to those in the commercial enforcement world, and every trooper. But to the best of my knowledge, this law was, it was sent out in a blanket email covering everything toward the end of it.
Different interpretations are going to hurt us.
That's true. You know, and things are subjective, as I mentioned earlier, too. I mean, what I might email be wrong may not be. Is there one back here? Question?
You have a question?
Question?
What do they tell you? You guys had your hand up? Oh, you waved at somebody.
No, one of the areas we tried to bring this up with this law was being written, is, you know, we spend thousands of dollars on this radio equipment. We do public service with this radio equipment besides our hobby. And we put these stuff in our car, all at our own expense. We operate it all, and we volunteer hundreds, thousands of hours of time to public safety and other practices around, as well as our other interest of communicating over ham radio, short, long distances. One of the bad things about this law that toward ham radio is, and the really bad ones, is that we're not going to keep putting thousands of dollars into these radios and having it available when there's an emergency, like when he responded to that accident, for God's sake. If he'd have gotten a ticket, he might have took his goddamn ham radio out of there and said, well, you know, I can't afford all these tickets, so I'm taking this out of there, and then he has no way to try to help that way. And that's just one instance. But, you know, I think the public service aspect of ham radio and the availability of so much communications equipment and networks that we have to the public service is a big factor that just can't be overemphasized. I hope we can take something from that.
No, I mean, and that's the message I think needs to be conveyed to the lawmakers down in Carson when they meet next year.
We did.
Okay, well, I mean, don't give up on that. I mean, just because somebody shot you down.
No, we're not giving up.
But I mean, that's the kind of.
But if we start giving up and start taking our equipment out of our vehicles, it hurts the public service.
Well, I get it.
It hurts you guys, hurts everybody.
Well, even DMV will waive the excess fees on them back when ham radio custom license plate. We'll sign a thing that says we will participate in an emergency. So on one side, this thing says, hey, this is good. We'll waive that fee for you.
Let me grab a judgment first.
If you're driving eastbound southbound on 395 and you're out in the Cold Springs area, they have an overpass that's the very east end of Cold Springs. It goes into Cold Springs. Just before that overpass, if you're going southbound, there's this big sign they put up there recently that says, use of handheld cellular devices is prohibited. That's all it says. So it goes back to what you're saying. That's what they're concerned. The main thing is concerned is holding that thing in your hand, and, you know, the phone in your hand, and a cellular device. That means with the buttons,
Right.
you know, a cell phone is what they're talking about.
Right.
That's what I get out of it. I see, when I read that thing, all I can picture is somebody on their cell phone doing this.
Okay.
So that's what the sign means to me.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you, how you hold it is not relevant, other than it's in your hand and it's up to your ear or your.
Yeah. That's what I get out of this sign. That's like the law. That's what it's trying to tell us.
Yeah.
But sometimes they get, you know, interpreted. Now they're getting us some ham radio. That's the only thing I wish they would take out the bill, that ham radio part that should have never been in that bill. For the cellular phone bill, I agree with you.
Right. No, I get it. I get it. So but I would just say, you know, between now and the next session, and until that bill is amended, you know, just when you're out there, just use some good self-discipline, if you will. I mean, I don't know how else to tell you. I mean, you know, just be careful out there. You know, if you've got to change a channel, you know, just know your surroundings. You know, if you see Chuck in an NHP truck coming up, that wouldn't be the time to, you know, don't put us in bad positions.
Slow down the show. We don't want to put you guys in
you know, and I get what you guys do out there. I mean, I know there's a lot of support when things are out there, and whether it's reporting on weather, or reporting on a natural disaster or an accident somewhere, I do get it. So I just think that message needs to be consistent when it's up channel to the lawmakers. And just keep your fingers crossed. But that's the same. I don't mean to sound so lackadaisical on that, but I mean, be dialed in on that.
I think we're all agreed too that if you really are distracted, you're fiddling with your radio, you probably ought to get a ticket.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, this is maybe something that's going to have to be adjudicated, to be clarified, but the fact is that while we have fun on our radios and talk a lot, all that time we're actually testing and practicing our equipment and our abilities and skills. And it would be like, the law is like if you had a weightlifter who could only lift weights during actual competition and couldn't do it when he's not in competition, he'd never become a great weightlifter. And the same thing applies to us on the radio. We need to practice, we need to talk, we need to make sure the equipment is functional and usable. And it may be that this is going to have to go to court and be adjudicated so that we have case law that says, yes, you can use your equipment when it's not an emergency. And it's important that we're able to do that. So
Right.
that we know these things work.
No, and it wouldn't, to me personally, it wouldn't be hard to amend that law. I mean, you know, ham radio operators who use their equipment all the time,
Yeah,
as
just
long as they're
strike
not.
the part about the buttons. And
The distracted part, yeah. You know? Yes, ma'am. Carol.
Most of us have a scan button on our radios, and so we don't have to change the frequency. Did you order?
Yes, ma'am.
Keep the mic at that time. So there's a way around it for you guys, so you're not disobeying the law, if you will. So it's a workaround for now. But it would be nice to get it changed so you feel even more comfortable about what you're doing and talking on the radio when it's written in law. That's what I'm getting out of here.
Do you know which one she is?
That's me. Who's asking?
I guess it don't matter, nobody.
It's on, but I'm not
Just trying to understand that this is the that's all.
Yes, you're not using it. Right, you're fine. Yeah, I mean, we're going to get it.
It's not the fact that I have it in there.
Yeah, and that's, and you know what, I see so many people either reading their emails or reading a text or texting because I'm looking at how they're their eyes are on the truck. I mean, when you see somebody, and this is a typical pattern I see. The left hand on the center of the steering wheel, they're slightly leaned over on this side, and they keep focusing about their eyes about 45 degrees. You guys see it, so I'm preaching to the choir here. But for me personally, I probably wouldn't take enforcement action until I saw the phone in range. Because how do I know that that person isn't reading a letter that was, or a car? You know, I mean, I'm trying not to defend the violator by any means, but I've got to be able to articulate why I stopped you in the first place. You know, and maybe through training and experience, I can say, well, based on what I've done and seen out there, when I see somebody whose eyes keep looking down and then up and looking down and then up, I can articulate that they're texting. Well, what else could they be doing? I don't know. So, again,
maybe we can get the radio stations to stop sending traffic alert text messages.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. They tell you about that just before they run the ad about
yeah, I know. Ross and Monica are really good about that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Now, we tie some of us have GPSs that are tied to our rig. Is messing with that GPS while we're driving down the road part of this law?
It is, yeah. It says that you have to have voice-activated GPS. So let's say you want to leave Carroll's and go up to the Public Safety Training Center. You're brand new to Nevada and you're going to go to that meeting on Saturday and you don't know how to get there. You're supposed to program your destination in here and let it be voice-activated.
While parked, in other words?
Yes, because it's pointless to try to enter a new destination while you're driving. That's probably the most unsafe thing you can do.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we all agree on that.
It's fun.
And I said earlier, I mean, if you're using your BlackBerry or your iPhone as your navigation device, make sure that it's not in your hand. The law says that they use the word affixed to your vehicle. So again, suction cups, you know, set in a cradle, set in your cup holder, your center console. Something where the phone's not going to be. What we don't want to see is a phone fall off the seat because you hit the brakes, and now you're scrambling to grab your phone. So as long as the phone doesn't go anywhere, you're going to be much better off. So, and as long as that GPS is voice activated.
All right. Thank you.
There's another question.
Oh, go ahead, sir.
For my thing about the other day, you know, using ham radio to, you know, make that emergency transmission. I'm actually in the process of actually setting that, typing up a letter and sending it to the legislature and the senator. And I think the best course of action to get this reversed is to keep the pressure on the senators and the legislature.
No, I agree. I mean, our elected officials. I mean, I don't want to say you have to hold them accountable, but I mean, you do. I mean, they're serving you.
Yeah.
So they're you know, no matter what the issue is, you know, it doesn't matter if you don't like people have more than 4 dogs in their house, and you're just adamant that they should only have 3. Well, that's as an example. You know, it's just as a talking point. You know, you stay on your, say, I don't believe in this, and then obviously there's strength in numbers too. That's why I was asking who your chapter president was, because when you have that one go-to person as a point of contact with your lawmakers, where you start that email trail going, and like I said, just keep pushing it, keep it alive, and then, you know, if you don't, nothing's going to happen.
So, I just want to make a couple comments.
Yes.
Thanks for playing politician for us, first of all.
Yeah.
And second of all, so I found the document that Kevin referenced, and it's actually a PDF that's on the DMV website.
It is? Okay.
And so on the DMV website, there's a PDF in traffic laws 2011.
Okay.
And as part of it, there's a no phone zone, and there is the section, exemptions include, ... and then, drivers using citizens band or other two-way radios that require a license and have a separate handheld microphone. So what that doesn't address is this issue where we have this microphone that's got these buttons here. That's the down and up, but they're besides the push to talk button. And so I think if you read the actual law, this microphone would be illegal because it contains buttons other than the push to talk.
Right, I would agree with you there.
And so I understand that, you know, in this day and age, because we're getting all sorts of regulations like this that are coming out, officers can't keep track of all the details of all the laws. There's no way. I have friends in the CHP. I can't imagine what their life is like. That's even worse than that. So it's officer discretion. And so we have these issues. And so, you know, if someone were to keep a copy of this DMV flyer in their car, now if you're pulled over because you're driving distracted and you're eating around, that's, you have nothing to stand on.
Right.
But if you're pulled over because they simply saw you do this, and so then you have a discussion, and the officer has to make this choice.
Right.
I think it would be good if there was, I guess, some additional communication within the law enforcement community about what this law is really targeting. So officer discretion is their ability to see what is happening. We have licensed individuals here, they show a license. Sure, the microphone comes from the factory with these buttons. They're not distracting while they're using it. So we don't have the issue like this gentleman had the other day where she just said, well, you can't use it.
Yeah, I would say 90%, I would go on record and say 99% of the violations that we're targeting as a law enforcement community is seeing the phone up here. I would say 99% is what we're looking for. I had a lady pass me on Friday. I was going to Carson. I was southbound from the junction. I was in the middle lane. She passed me. I was doing the speed limit, but she was slightly distracted. And when she went by me at only 3 miles an hour over the speed limit, I saw both hands.
Oh my gosh!
So I pulled her over and I wrote on the ticket, texting while driving.
Wow.
I didn't say talking on a cell phone. I said texting while driving. And
that's worse.
And so, well, it's the same penalty, but I mean, that's
the distraction is worse.
Again, I'm going to look. I'm going to be, 100% sure of what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
But I don't think, honestly, I don't think you guys, except for maybe the young man down there, are going to get into too big of a loophole if you're talking on something. Because if you've got this radio like this, even though it has all these buttons on there, if you're just talking to your pals out there, I'm going to assume you're on a CB, being uneducated on radios. Okay, I may not see the personalized Katie plate. I don't know. But I'm going to think this guy's just talking on the CB, and I know in law that's okay to do so because all I see him or her doing is, yeah, George, what do you got over there? Okay. But if I see ham radio operator going, well, shoot, what's he say? Let me go over here. Then push to talk. Then that's situational awareness is huge. Am I right?
That's dangerous too. Yeah. So pushing those buttons. You do that. That's dangerous.
So okay. So I mean, as long as you're not studying the keypad with your eyes while you're driving.
Yeah.
You're all in agreement with that, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Eyes on the road.
Eyes on the road. So as long as you're just pushing to talk, no matter what you're talking about, just chit-chatting, you're fine. I would say you're fine. I would never cite you for that.
Would you represent me in court next
Yeah. Yeah, we get tickets in court for us.
You got a lot of business cards?
Yeah.
I mean, are there any other types of ham radio equipment that's wireless that you would, like a cell phone, that you would hold up here? No? Everything is hardwired, right?
Well, except that
This is the microphone. Usually comes with the radio.
Okay. 3 buttons on it.
Usually comes with the radio.
But if you see this in a person's hand.
Well, see that's where I have the issue.
Okay.
That's where I have the issue.
Also, the microphone with push buttons on. You cannot text on that. There's no
but that's,
you can't text. There's no letters to text.
When the law was, I'm guessing, Scotty, when the law was written, the lawmakers had that in mind as a visual. The radio he just showed me.
Yeah,
When you're holding a handheld ham radio that's not wired in, like this is, that's when you're going to have your issues. Because there's a screen on there that'll show you channels that you have to look at.
No.
If you want to switch, right? I saw a screen on that one.
But you don't have to change channels.
Oh. Same with this one too.
Oh, yeah.
But you can plug a mic into it.
Okay, so you're gonna have to put this critter somewhere in your truck that's stable, and then you're just gonna have to. Can you do that?
And they do make.
That's what you're gonna have to do. That's what you're gonna have to do.
And the speaker mics for those don't have any other buttons on it.
Okay.
You also have a block.
3 hotkeys.
Yeah.
One earpiece goes over your head.
Okay.
Also, I have probably saved 4 or 5 people, maybe 6 people, probably the death.
Really?
With that ham radio.
Yes, I mean, those are all great testimonials for this.
So what I'm getting at, Chuck, is, so right now the law was passed, there was some opposition from the community. And there were some, to be honest, I mean, there were some hostile lawmakers there that just, they were, just a couple of them, it sounded like, that were just very opposed to anyone that was doing anything similar to this. And so there weren't any real common sense decisions.
No exceptions, really.
But so what you see the exceptions that came through because of heavy lobbying on the commercial side. Now, what would you suggest until, let's say, this law can be changed down the road? I mean, I'm not optimistic about it, but let's say it is. But between now and then, you have officers like yourself who are aware of some of the issues, but then you have some that aren't. And so, should we carry like a copy of the PDF flyer?
I mean, you can, but I think what's going to get you stopped in the first place is somebody holding one of those radios in their hand. That's what's going to get you stopped, because all you see is a 3x4 black brick in your hand. And I don't know if that's a BlackBerry or an iPhone or a regular phone or one of these phones. I don't know. All I see is the hand here, looking at it, or it's up here where you're talking in it. So I think if you can get away from that and just hardwire this microphone and leave that thing hidden somewhere, and if you do happen to get pulled over, say, look, I've got the radio affixed to my vehicle, as the law states, and I'm only using the push to talk. I don't know of anybody who would write you a ticket for that. And if they did, I would love to join you in court just to see what the judge had to say.
Okay.
I would.
We'll take you up on that.
But he was pulled over.
During my traffic stop, got stopped over here by Bassett Furniture on Virginia Street,
Okay.
and the NHP was in front of me for 5 minutes, and I clearly had my cell phone mounted to a little cradle in the dash, which you can see. And I was just about, I had the mic like right about here, and I was talking to Al.
Okay.
And she pulled over, got behind me, pulled me over, and said I was using a cell phone or CB radio. And she said, no, those are against the law. I was like, well, my cell phone's right there in the dash. And I was getting weather reports, so I'm clearly exempt. But she just still tried to argue, say that, you know, it's still illegal. So I said, okay. So have a nice day.
If we had a flyer like this, it's straight off the website, would that help communicate that?
I don't know. I mean,
Depends on the officer.
I understand that. I'm just trying to get it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we need to be the ones that are educated in the law. I mean, if somebody showed me something and corrected me, I take criticism very well. I learned something today. But I just know, I know the camera's still on over there. I know that 95% of the officers out there, but I don't care who you work for, there's a high level of arrogance. And I don't know if it comes between seeing what they see when it comes to some of the calls for service on the city streets. I don't know where that abrasiveness comes from. Sometimes I feel if you're kind to somebody, that's a sign of weakness, as John Wayne always said. But
so Chuck, you're blaming it on the street cops now?
Yeah.
Morning, sir.
Am I right though? There is a level of arrogance out there where most people don't want to be told how to do their job. And I don't care if you work for Home Depot or if you work for McDonald's, nobody wants to be talked down to or told how to do their job. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
So for you as a violator, hypothetically, to come over and say, well, you know what, Trooper? Let me show you the law. Pal. Yeah. Here's the law, pal. How far is that traffic stop going to go now?
It'll be followed with sign here. It's not an admission of guilt, just a promise to take care of your ticket.
So I think there's some merit to what you have to say, Scotty. But I think it's in how you sell that. I think, and everybody in here is different. Would you guys agree? There are people persons in here, and there's people that just like talking on the radio. Okay, right? Everyone's got a different personality in here, so it's how you present that to the officer. And that officer, male, female, trooper, deputy, police officer, may have just had the worst encounter, and now there's you. I've been there. And you're thinking, oh, and we're not trying to take our frustration out on the next person. That's not our intent. But man, the next person that even looks at me the wrong way in their car is going to get pulled over. And then you walk up to the person, and they're the nicest people in the world. And it's like, man, that traffic stop, that second traffic stop, just erased all the anxiety I just experienced from this horrific issue I had over here. So, okay, so there's that. Just to give you guys some mindset of what we have to deal with sometimes too. So it's not all about writing the ticket. Am I right? It's not all about writing the ticket. I mean, I can give you a verbal warning, and I do most of those. I do a lot of that in this job. But when something's 100% wrong, that's when the citations come out. So I wouldn't get, the only time I'd really get wrapped around this particular law for you guys as a group here is when you're holding that radio and in your hand and talking on it, unless it's a real world emergency or a planned event with DEM or some other county government.
Well, I also think weather like this, the sensitivity level for infraction probably goes up a little bit. And
oh yeah.
You know, you're doing 58 miles an hour in a 55 zone, and normally that's okay, but this weather,
right, right. Yeah. So, yes, sir.
Well, a slightly different issue. Headphones. This is kind of like a headphone, right? What are the issues that revolve around using headphone mic boom? And can you use two or
use two? Yes.
Really?
You can use two earbuds, yeah. Because I mean, we have people that are deaf that are driving out there. So for me to tell you you can't put two earbuds in your ear.
But I thought that, didn't that used to be illegal? I mean,
I think it did. We've done research on it. I can't find anywhere in NRS unless there's a muni code or a county ordinance that says you can't do it. Now, a muni code or an ordinance could be more strict than the Nevada revised statute. So. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
City government, county government make something more strict than what state law dictates. So if there's a muni code somewhere or a county ordinance out there in Story County that says you can't have two earbuds in your ear, then that would be the case. But as long as you're activating, initiating, or deactivating a call by touching a button, whether it's here or here on your steering wheel, or even if your cell phone is cradled on the dash or in the center console, and you're driving down the road. It's no different than looking at your FM radio, and you're just driving around the road. Oh, there's my phone. I heard it ring. Oh, it's my wife. Yeah, hello. Yeah, go ahead. As long as I'm not picking that phone up to talk to her, I've got this or the speaker to the car. I'm fine. So as long as it's the hand thing that's going to get you in trouble every time. To sum it up, if something in your hand, it's going to get you in trouble. It doesn't matter if it's, and I stopped a lady not too long ago, bless her heart, that's a nice way of saying it. This is before the citations went into effect, when we were doing verbal enforcement. I watched her, she had a phone just like this, up against her left ear. I passed her, I looked over, and she's talking, and she's enjoying the conversation. I could tell, it's written on her face. So I pulled her over, and I said, ma'am, did you know it's against the law to talk on a cell phone while driving in Nevada as October 1st? She goes, I wasn't talking on a cell phone. What? So ma'am, I said, let's not start the traffic stop out on that note. Don't start out by lying to me. And I said, okay, let me change the question. What did you have up against your left ear before I pulled you over? She reaches into her purse and she takes out her black purse. And she goes, I had that up. Now, she had two little kids in the car, and it's to the point where I left with a verbal. I left with a verbal warning. But that's all I could do was educate her. But I mean, could I have gone into lying to a police officer, found her phone? Yes, I could have gone into that, but it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth taking her into custody or writing her something differently when she's got kids in the car. So just another story to share with you.
I've never seen a ham radio operator do this.
Okay. Well, that's right. That's what I was doing, huh? I was seeing if you were paying attention.
It's hard to tell when you're driving behind somebody exactly what they're doing.
So, but I mean, if I just leave you with that, I mean, as long as you don't have something in your hand, unless it's a real world emergency, you're reporting an accident, and some of the other exceptions that I mentioned earlier, you'll be fine. But just
like CB, for example.
CB, but just adapt to it. That's all you can do.
That stuck in our craw, the CB was an example.
I know.
We get all kinds of training and experience, and they really have none. And a lot of us quit doing CB because we didn't know enough swear words.
Anyway, Jim, are we good?
Any other questions?
You did good. Any other questions?
Go ahead, sir.
Kevin, go ahead, then Dave.
My question is this. Granted, we can all discuss what we're discussing, and it's my interpretation versus the officer's interpretation. what I'm curious is, you guys as a law enforcement entity, somebody drew up the paperwork and presented it to the officers and said, this is what we're looking for. So, like, you're looking for your specific things, but what was actually written and handed to all the officers? Because I know nobody read the NRS statute and said this is what it is. It was probably a meeting prior to you guys going out in service, and it's like the laws enforcement today. Read your email, and it tells us what we're looking for. So what I want to know is what that email said.
Well, all the sergeants briefed their troops on the law. There were two particular laws that came out that really affected law enforcement. There was the cell phone law that generated a lot of buzz, if you will, and the bicycle law with the 3-foot rule. So those are the two specific laws that were covered in-house by my folks too. Did I go to every meeting? No, but I was aware. I was disseminating information about the bill. I was communicating with my counterparts in Las Vegas and in Elko, so we were on the same. Because they would give me a, hey Chuck, our iPhones, or not iPhones, our iPods illegal. Because I was looking at the verbiage too, and I said, yeah, it's a wireless device that's used for reading non-voice communication, so it falls into that as long as you're holding it. Now that iPhone is built in here, and you can reach over there and adjust your song without picking it up, but it's again, it's when it's in your hand. So, does that answer your question?
So that's basically what you guys are instructed. If you see something in somebody's hand.
Well, not something, but I mean, when you can articulate, meaning you've got the cell phone up here, the lips are moving, it looks like they're in a conversation. But I said most of the time, we're seeing a lot of this. We're seeing an awful lot of this because people, even though they're trying to stealthily do it down here, they know it's dangerous to do that. So they're trying to compromise by holding it just below the dash line, but they're looking over all the time. And I'm looking for that particular angle right there before I make the traffic stop.
Dave, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm sure you realize this is the entire radio, including antenna.
Yes, I know that. That's why I said if you cradle that somehow.
Inside of a vehicle, this antenna is a piece of junk. So we take it off.
Okay.
We got an antenna on the roof.
Okay.
This is the microphone. It's also the radio. I have a solution, guys. Black electrician's tape over the visual part, black electrician's tape over the buttons. All this is a push to talk at that point. I don't see a problem with that.
Put a mic on it.
Again,
yeah, but a mic is $50. Why should I spend another $50?
Well, I don't know, it's a peace of mind that if you're just talking on a microphone wired into that little critter, that you're going to be less apt to be stopped. And this gentleman may be wasting your time.
How much is the ticket?
The ticket's $50.
They're 112 with tax.
Yeah, so that you'd be better off spending the $50 or more.
You forgot the court cost too, though.
Yeah, 112 for the first offense.
Oh,
That's in the justice courts. Community courts,
130.
130.
Oh.
Wow. And the first offense is 0 points on your license. Second and subsequent within 7 years, 4 points, 4 demerits.
Wow.
And it qualifies for the construction zone, so double there too. So.
Oh, nice. Scott, you have another question?
Well, I don't so much have a question. An observation that I've learned over the years dealing with the troopers and the sheriffs. You know, when you do get pulled over, if you act courteous to them, you know, I've been able to get out of a few tickets by, you know, being, you know, polite and decent. You know.
Oh yeah.
But you know, you just gotta look at it from their perspective because they deal with a lot of knuckleheads out there that.
Well,
don't like
goes
it,
into my attitude, but that's a whole other class. That's a whole other meeting. We talk about that. So. But I agree with you completely. Yes.
Attitude determines
Yeah,
ticket.
one last thing. So if this female cop has just had a candid encounter the previous week, if she comes up to me, so I guess I should reach out and give her a nice kiss.
You know how handcuffs feel, Ron?
And when you go to register as a sex offender, you have to go downtown and do that.
You're welcome. You gotta go? Okay.
Okay, no, Dave?
Before you leave,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you for rescuing me on Dog Valley Road about 12 or 13 years ago.
Oh, wow. All right, okay. I wouldn't remember that, but if I helped you, thank you.
I was probably the only person you've ever seen with a 1-gallon jug cut out using as a scoop to
Oh,
for
okay.
the snow.
Did I help dig you out, or did I pull you
Yeah,
out?
you guys pulled me about 8 or 10 feet,
Oh,
and I
okay.
was okay.
Good. That's the kind of stuff I like to have anyway.
Any other questions for the trooper?
We've got to let him get
got one for everybody.
Can we offer you, Chuck, can we offer you any coffee or food or anything?
Bill,
I got one thing to add here.
Okay.
Other than myself, has anybody tried to contact their legislatures down in Carson City about this since the law went into effect? I have.
Beforehand.
We had this kind of response down there when this thing was down and the weather was a lot better. Things could have changed. Because we had support of the police departments and sheriff's departments.
Well, we did have Senator Breeden cooperate with the bill. Remember Senator Sue Breeden that brought the bill up? She refused to take the ham radio thing out there because her husband said that we could text on that microphone. I remember
His secretary said
her secretary, her husband, and the only reason she was adamant is because the president's daughter was killed. She was actually called for that. That's the whole
That's just like the knuckleheads.
Good to see you out here.
Well, yeah, I might get a call.
I certainly want to thank, the Radio Pack wants to thank Trooper Allen and also Jim. We want to thank you very much for being here. Thank you. Let's give another hand.
Okay.
We'll get you a cup of coffee here.